Hi, this is Jeff Harmon with Brilliance Within, back with another episode of Conversations That Life Science Leaders Aren't Having. I'm excited to bring you today Raphael Ognar. This is a first for us here on the podcast. Raphael is a friend and a coaching client, and we get to dive below the surface as we do in our coaching here in this conversation. Raphael, in a minute, will share what he's up to in the world. But Raphael, to me, is passion. He brings this in everything that he does. He's a musician, he's a drummer, he's an entrepreneur, he's a dad. And in all of those places, my experience of Raphael is a heart of passion. And so sit back and enjoy this conversation with Raphael Ognar. Raphael Ognar, so nice to have you. This is a first for us, where I'm getting to dive into one of these conversations with a client. And so I've been really excited. You just heard really brief introduction of you, who you are to me. I'd love for you to share with the audience what you're up to in the world.
Thank you, Jeff. And the pleasure is mutual. Being able to expand our regular conversation into maybe a more formal format. But I'll be very pleased to give you a little bit more about myself. So my name is Raphael. I am born in France, raised in multiple countries in the world, had the opportunity to hold multiple citizenship because I grew up in different countries. And I have a very global mindset, something that really matters to me. For a very important reason is that I like diversity and I like to be exposed to a difference of opinion, people thinking, and that's it's part of my DNA, I should say, that I got probably from my parents that were also global travelers. I've been working in the pharma biotech industry for close to 25 years now. I'm a scientist by training, but did most of my work in marketing, commercial, and strategy. And along these 25 years, there's 20 that were in corporate world, pharma, biotech, almost everything in oncology and hematology that became a very strong passion of me. With this constant drive that we need to do more and more to try to eradicate cancer. And if we never eradicate it, that I think, unfortunately, we will probably never eradicate it, we have to be better and smarter than those cancer cells. And we're trying to do that all the time. More recently, I moved on to the entrepreneurship area, where I've been doing more consulting. And that's where I met the right people that allowed me to put together the right idea to create a new company that we call NKILT Therapeutics, that is a new cell therapy startup. But I also met other people that are doing health services and providing service to many pharma stakeholders and biotech stakeholders through a company called Alira Health that I want to also mention because it's a very important piece of what I'm doing in addition. And those two universes are actually colliding nicely and synergistically. And I'll be happy to address that in a later stage. But that's a little bit about myself. And I've been living in the US for 15 years now. I have two college kids of 20 and 22-year-old. I should say, sorry. Yeah, they're going to call 19 and 21, sorry. And I'm sharing my life with a wonderful woman that is a medical oncologist, as a surprise, that is also in the world of biotech and that is at the C-level in a very pioneering biotech currently in cell therapy also. That's what we can say.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you shared, all of you, not just, oh, this is my company and this is what we do. My observation of our social media driven world is people tend to be very two-dimensional. And I love that you gave us a three-dimensional view of yourself. So thank you for doing that. And I'm curious, I want to go back to the first thing you shared about your multicultural multi-citizenship, traveling life, even as a youngster. I'm wondering, and you mentioned the diversity that you've grown to appreciate diversity. I'm curious, what else are the fingerprints of that diverse experience, even as a young kid? What are the fingerprints of that, and how you show up to your leadership in your world?
That's a very interesting question. One of the things that I had to learn, some would say because I had no other choice. I would more say because I, in some way, wanted to. Is that when you move every 2 years to a new place, you're gonna need to find new friends, and that requires to kind of open up to the others. Of course, I could have become one of those introvert kids, and there's nothing wrong about this, that will kind of more, get on themselves because it's so hard to get out and meet with other people. I totally understand that. I decided to take it the other way around and try to rapidly create a new circle of friends, because it's something that I know I need. I actually, the concept of having people around me is something very important. All my good friends will tell you that I kind of I feed myself from others, so it's very important to me. What I think is interesting for the way I look at business things today, and the way I work with people particularly, is that it is very important for me to identify people that are what I am not. Because I think we all have our strengths and our weaknesses, and pretending to be good at everything, maybe some people are. I still doubt that it's the truth. But I think it's much more powerful to be mindful of what you are good and not good, and to seek for others to complement what you're doing. And as I'm currently building a new company, for example, it's in some way easier to go and reach out all the people that will be like me. And then I will put a company with a bunch of other Raphael Ognar. And it will be not only pretty scary, but probably very boring and conflicting. What I find more appealing is to try to understand how can I make, for example, my C-suite a very balanced environment where everybody will have a voice and everybody will be able to provide their perspective that is not necessarily the same as mine, but that can be very much complementary. So I'm really trying to work that way. And every time I work with people, I try to understand how can I help them beyond the business thing. It's like what is it that I can give you that is more than just, okay, I'm going to coach you, or I'm going to explain to you how to do this and that. But I want to be sure that we're building something that gets a little tighter and stronger, because we spend too much time at work. And it cannot be, with all these hours we spend at work, it has to be, to me, it has to be real. You have to be able to be who you are. Of course, you're not going to say everything about your personal life, but you need to feel that you're comfortable, and you don't need to show up with a new costume, because, when you went to work, it's the way you are. And then when you're outside of work, you're a different person. Yeah. You try to pretty much have me the way I am, whether I'm at work or outside.
Yeah, and it's so interesting, because there's I think a fallacy in entrepreneurship in general, that there's a glamorousness to it, there's a sexiness to it, maybe by our former colleagues in the corporate life who look at us enviously. But the truth is, my experience is that leadership in this world, in the entrepreneurship world, is often very lonely. And you've just described, though, a countercultural way of approaching even to what can be pretty lonely, is to be very intent and active in surrounding yourself with others who are different perspectives, connecting, building relationships. It sounds like that not only now in your entrepreneurial life in NKILT, but it sounds like that is kind of core of who you are and who you've been, is create community, create connection. That's part of your secret sauce.
Yeah, it could be. It's interesting what you're pointing out, because I will absolutely not deny the loneliness that you face, particularly when you are considered at the top of the chain as a CEO of a new company, or if you are heading a group. It's like everybody looks up to you, and you have to be like really the one making the call, whether you know if the call is right or wrong. So that is a very strong statement that loneliness is something that we shouldn't neglect, because it is true. Some people like it. I personally have moments where I think it's great, but I wish I would have more opportunities to share some of the things that are in my brain, and then it's not always possible. But I will also say that even if I really don't think entrepreneurship is that glamorous, I know many people admire entrepreneurs, whatever. Yeah, but at the end of the day, entrepreneurship is about hard work and constantly making decisions without having any clue whether or not it's the right one, because you kind of rarely in a position where you have all the elements to be able to make that call. That's kind of also what leadership is. But what I found very interesting in my journey currently is that I've been 20 years in corporate, and I actually feel now when I look back that I was more lonely in corporate than I am now. And the reason why is because corporate is a different animal. It's a different world. And it's not about you as a person. Well, when you are in an entrepreneurship endeavor and you talk to other people that are in that endeavor, I believe they have another way of looking at the human side. And I'm going to go back to a couple of things I mentioned with, creating my own BioTech is a way of trying to achieve something business-wise, but also people-wise. And I pay as much attention as possible to not only construct a scientific platform, but I also want to construct a human platform where people are going to be happy every day to come to work. And of course, if we deliver to the science and help patients, it's even better. And the other group I'm working with, that is Alira, they also have that mindset. They have that frenetic vision of like doing things for people, with people, and I insist on this for and with. And they're, like I said, their mojo is humanized healthcare. It means something. It means that we healthcare looks like a process, and if we can, by the way we act and by the way we approach our business, can bring more human piece of it, I think we will benefit from it. And we have to remember, even if we're in a capitalistic economy, the enterprise was there to regroup people to achieve something together, not the other way around. So maybe I'm an idealist, but I still believe it's doable.
Yeah, this distinction that I heard you name, healthcare, and in the service space that you're in, with the patient instead of for the patient. I mean, it's a subtle difference of that little word that precedes patient. But I wonder if you could say a little bit more about what's really at the heart of that distinction for you personally. Why is it so meaningful for you, that distinction of with the patient instead of for the patient?
Yeah, and it's so. Thank you for asking that, because there's nothing wrong in doing things for the patient, and or doing something for someone else. It's better than not doing anything, for sure. But I think we have been extremely good in the pharma and biotech industry at developing new therapeutic approaches, new breakthroughs, even being in some way, when we were challenged, finding new ways of being able to promote that science and promote that kind of innovation that we're always trying to achieve, and make it accessible to as many people as possible. That's the ideal way of doing business. But we also know that if you look back, we spend most of our time, and I say we as an industry in general, all the stakeholders. It's not just the pharma or the biotech, it's everybody, the hospital, the physician, the payers, the insurance, everybody. We kind of like into a system where at the end of the day, the one person that is supposed to matter the most is the one that is the least involved in any of the conversation, and that's the patient. So today we have ways, because of technology and because of the way the society is evolving, to bring that patient in the center, but not as just a iconic thing that we put in the center, to be a real actor and to develop with the patient the way we should do healthcare tomorrow, including the way we should develop science. And not only us telling you this is going to be good for you. And of course, there's still going to be things that, you're not going to ask a patient to tell us what is the next pathway we have to discover or to target or whatever. That's not their job. But once they are involved in the system, it is technically possible today through the leverage of the technology and and with people that are willing to push forward that way, to really do more than just providing things to patients. We can get more of their feedback. We can get more of what they're living through. I used to say it's great to develop a drug that can help you living better. But what does mean living better? Living better from a scientific perspective can be, yes, you have a longer survival rate, you have a longer progression-free survival, whatever. But living better is also every day I'm waking up, I have to live with my disease and my medication. And what does it mean to me as a patient? And I think it should resonate to everybody, because one day or the other, we are all patients in some ways. So I really think that's a good evolution. And I really believe in the nature of doing business by doing good for people. And I think patients are actors of healthcare. So developing activities with them is not only a fantastic learning experience, but I think it's a more impactful one.
In my experience, Raphael, founders that I've talked to have a story that have driven them to have such a focus. What's your story around this heart-centered approach to a patient? They're not, as you said, they're not just an icon at the middle of the wheel, but they are truly part of the process. What's your story around that connection to patients?
So it's very interesting, because first, I think, unfortunately, I'm working in cancer for 20 plus years. And I think, unfortunately, we all cross paths with cancer, whether through family, friends, or directly. So in some way, we kind of all relate to that particular aspect. But I will have to be honest that when I was back in pharma, almost 15 years ago, a little bit less, I was really focusing on my pharma work and try to learn the arcanes of marketing in pharma and biotech and strategy and drug development and all this. And there was this idea with a couple of friends that we were having in mind and saying, it would be great if we could be as good innovators as we are in the science to help patients directly on their daily life. It really came as a kind of an idea like this. What I find very interesting, and this is one of the paradoxes of our lives in general, is that I had friends that stepped out pharma, created companies, going to the world of digital health with that idea. I didn't follow them because I didn't feel it was, either I didn't feel ready or I didn't feel it was exactly what I wanted. And those people are doing their things and it's great. But what is really interesting is that throughout my journey, it's kind of biting me back now. And interestingly, I'm creating my own company, but I'm also working with these guys at Alira Health, and their focus is all about this: humanizing healthcare, leveraging the patient for what the patient is, as a real entity, a real actor of the healthcare system, and leveraging technology to be able to reach out and engage and expand the footprint the patient can have on his own journey. So it really didn't come. It's not like I would lie to say, oh, it's because I had someone in my family dying of cancer. Yes, I have people dying of cancer in my family. I have a nephew that was in his 30s and died of glioblastoma a few years ago, and that was affecting us, of course, all of us, because it's always that feeling of being unfair when someone in the middle of his strength age gets, receives such a strike and gets out of life so quickly. But I think it's really about whatever I want to do, if I can leave not a footprint, because it doesn't really matter, my footprint, but if I can leave ideas into the mindset of people that are around me, that we try to do more cooperative things, more together things, than more selfish things, I'll feel good about it. You cannot solve the biggest problem of the world at your small level, but you can do your thing to make it better for someone else. So this is a little bit my way of doing my thing to try to make it better for someone else.
I said this to you before, but it comes up again, and it feels like you're on your own hero's journey. As some of the great stories of all time are stories of heroes. Luke, the classic fictional ones, Luke Skywalker, Bilbo Baggins, or Frodo in the Lord of the Rings, but that there's obviously in those fictional stories or in real stories like William Wallace, there's something bigger at stake, but there's also the journey of the individual as well. And so my sense is as well, cancer and the patient is a big context in what's at play, that there's also a hero's journey of your own. And I'm curious, what is that? I'm just introducing it right, a little bit cold, but I'm wondering what's your hero's journey?
It's a blunt question. It's not necessarily easy to address like this.
Yeah.
So I remember we had conversation about what my young self would think about what we're doing today. We meaning me and the people around me. And the way I look at it is also what am I going to leave to my kids, for example? Like, what is the memory they're going to have? Probably they're going to have the memory of someone that worked way too much and that spent way too many hours in planes, hotels, and whatever other conferences, or working at his desk. But I think there's really a drive for me that is, because I don't consider myself the smartest in the room, because I have the opportunity to work with people that are incredibly intelligent, brilliant in so many aspects. People I work with, like they could do MD, PhD, MBA, whatever. They feels like they needed 2 lives to do their curriculum, and then they start the other life that is the life they're currently living. I find that spectacular. I am far from being able to do that. But at my little level, I think I have gained some experience in life that was, no matter what, great, with ups and downs, but great. And if I can move the needle on something, whatever it is, if I can inspire one person to try, if I can give the opportunity for someone to say, you know what, life is too short, let's live it 100%, including 100% means, yes, have fun with your friends, but have fun at work, do something you like. Of course, it's easy to say in my position today, but it is something that is really important, and that I think is it can not only be about the money and the fame. That's what I'm saying. And we live in a society where people are ready to trade everything just for 30 seconds of fame on a stupid social media, with the worst example shown for the past few years by the highest ranked level people. So I just believe that it's important to feel that you're doing something that makes sense and that has an impact. Maybe in a decade, everybody will have forgotten me, That's okay. It doesn't matter. If my kids remember me, it's already going to be good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is in our continuing work outside of this formal conversation. I'm going to invite us, I think, again and again to look at this journey, because I think it's really powerful, and there's this mindset of we call it fame or fortune or notoriety, but I think what you're really speaking to is impact. And my sense is, and I'd love your perspective on this, is as organizations get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then on the largest scale in corporate, this concept and the conversation around impact recedes into the background.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering this as you build NKILT and seek to have it become something of substance, how do you see keeping this conversation of impact and purpose fresh and at the front of everything you do?
Well, it's always tricky to not get caught in the weeds of what we do every day and getting frustrated and getting thinking that there are so many things that are too important, so we shouldn't focus on the human side, for example. We are very early on NKILT. Okay, we barely coming out of stealth. We have the opportunity we just opened our lab and we're starting our work, so that's concrete and great. We could do that because of some early investors that trusted us in a context where most investors are freezing all their money and not putting anything because they're losing money across the board. And we have others that are still in trust and in discussion with us, and that's the reality of it. We're not going to be able to achieve anything if we don't have money coming in, and sometimes we can put so much effort on those things that we forget that behind we also need to build a company that is a group of people. So I think I'm lucky that I have people in my close network that are with the same mindset of prioritizing friendship versus work, prioritizing putting more importance onto what matters to them, not being selfish, but more importance of what matters to them versus some other things in life that you could do. And it's also an evolving thing. I mean, 5 years ago, I was not like I am today, and 10 years ago, far from what I am today. Mm-hmm. But the common theme was always, if we can't have fun in what we're doing, why doing it? Mm. If we can't deliver anything different or with some form of uniqueness, why doing it? Yeah. And then we can work as hard as it is possible. If it's just for our own benefit, it's useless. It has to be beyond ourselves. It has to be for more than just us. And every C-level person has a form of ego because we need to, because that's part of the game. But it doesn't mean we cannot think about others. It doesn't mean we cannot bring others up to the level we want. And I can only be happy if what we do goes somewhere. And if at the end someone says you're no longer the one that we believe is needed to do this, but thank you for bringing it there, and let's move to the next chapter, so be it. It's totally fine. What matters is that there is a next chapter, because life is made of chapter. And we would not want suddenly like say, yo, it's finished. The book is finishing. Bye, you're gone. But that's called death. But it is important that we can continue to write that book. And so I think it's because of that I try to always pay attention and not lose sight of what matters. It doesn't mean that I'm not having my lows also. I'm pretty sure I can get caught in not being the best of myself. But that's okay. It happens to all of us.
Yeah, I love that. There's the phrase, keep the main thing the main thing. And relationships, impact. It feels like that's a core principle for you of keep the main thing the main thing. The title of the series are conversations that life science leaders aren't having. If you, by some wave of a magic wand, you could plant a conversation in the mind of your CEO colleagues all over the globe, what would you love for all of them to be taking seriously in their conversations in the coming weeks and months?
That's a tough question. It's a tough question because there's a personality component to it, I think.
Well, you get to have total control on this little magical experiment. So if there was one thing that's near and dear to your heart, and it may be something we've already talked about.
It's very tricky because I have to still say something that will remain politically correct. I think what is really what is the core of my belief is accept to be who you are. Don't pretend to be who you are not. The most difficult thing when you are on top of the chain, when you are a leader, is that you have to always be even and in some way clean and whatever, because everybody looks up to you. And that creates a perception that is not the reality of who you are as a person. Because again, I don't believe in in some way, the perfect human being is probably going to be called a robot. And even robots will be with imperfection because they're human made. And so they will have human flaws. So what I think makes a difference is that association of unique personalities, unique backgrounds that makes us better. And the concept of a business and a company is that we are better together than one person alone. Entrepreneurship is often seen as is a one guy doing things. And there are businesses like this. But as I remember talking to one of the CEOs that I had the chance to interact with, that is today still in charge of a large pharma company, was saying to me that the best CEOs are often the ones that have the best people around themselves and that are capable of leveraging the best of them, including their assistant. For example, we all know that the person that is your right arm that knows everything about you is the one that probably has one of the strongest power to act on things. And don't underestimate that. Just don't underestimate that. You will never achieve anything alone. As brilliant as you are, as smart as you are, you will always need someone else, even if it's just someone else to challenge you so you can prove your point. Mm-hmm. You will always need someone else. Yeah. So maybe the seed I want to plant is that it's about, you will never achieve anything alone, even as an entrepreneur.
So I'm going to count that as 2, and which is fine because you got to make the rules. Number 1, what I heard is be you, don't try to be something else, and don't try to do it alone. And I think those are really powerful conversations, if only self-reflective conversations that every leader, especially CEOs, can have to be able to step into something even greater than where they are today. So yeah. Really, really powerful advice. Raphael, we could probably talk for many hours, but we'll close it out here with that piece. For those that are listening or watching who want to know more about you, where can they find out that information?
They can definitely connect via my LinkedIn account. We are using that all the time today. As I mentioned, I'm doing. I have a couple of major activities today through my BioTech and NKILT Therapeutics. that I'm going to use that channel to say like we are fundraising and we will be hiring soon, so you can stay tuned. Hopefully we'll be able to expand that. And I also want to give a big shout out to the people at Alira Health, and particularly to their CEO, Gabriele. That is a person that I met over a year ago, and that is one of those meetings that you have in life that makes a difference. He's an extraordinary CEO and, of course, a great leader, but a fantastic person. And I think his concept of humanizing healthcare is more than just words. It's really a mindset that I can see him carrying along, and I'm very proud and pleased to be contributing to that journey. As I said, it's completely synergistic with what we are doing at NKILT also. So these are the current things I'm doing. You can reach out to me. I'm generally attending multiple scientific conferences also. And I'm always happy to embark in a networking discussion, even if it's just to chat about everything and nothing. It's a thing that I have increased in the past few years, is spending time with others, listening to them, and it's my way of trying to help them with whatever I can provide. So don't hesitate to reach out. I always respond on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, we'll put all that in the show notes. Raphael, thanks so much for bringing.
My pleasure, Jeff. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to converse with you, and can't wait to see more of these episodes with other people, to see if I'm not that stupid, crazy unicorn, and if some have also some craziness like I do.